Well, hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Fearlessly Feral Living. This is Reverend Karen broadcasting to you from the Woogie Ranch out here in the back 40 of northwestern Nevada, where I'm a half an hour away from the nearest gas station and the nearest grocery store. Our mission here at Fearlessly Feral Living is to provide a strong and unshakable inner foundation that works for long-term successful living. Our purpose is to activate inner self-awareness, and our vision is a world in which everyone lives wild and free, in other words, fearlessly feral. And today I am very happy to be starting with a series of guests that I've been inviting to this show. You've been listening to me for about 4 years now, talking about using spiritual practices and principles to live fearlessly feral and to successfully weather life's transitions. And I figured it was time to give you some other perspectives. So today I am very happy to introduce my guest, Reverend Barbara Bew. Reverend Barbara is a minister with Centers for Spiritual Living. She's been a minister for the last 16 years. She serves as senior minister. She served as senior minister in Northern Colorado and then as director of field services and is now the director of operations for Centers for Spiritual Living worldwide. She's known as a teacher who bases her principle in reality and supports people in moving their lives in directions that fulfill them. She has been a popular speaker who brings humor to the journey. And I have a little story about that humor. Barbara, I hope you don't mind if I tell this, but
Oh, go ahead.
so when Barbara, before she became director of operations, she was field operations director. I think that's the right title, right?
Field
And
services are close enough, yeah.
I was just getting started on my journey as interim minister, and I was just finishing up my class, the required class that interim ministers have to take before they can be interim ministers. And I get a phone call one afternoon, and I was out on an artist date, and I was in this store that sells antiques. And I get this call from Reverend Barbara, and she says, no, nothing else other than identifying herself. And she says, "Where do you live?"
I'm so stressed out then.
And,
Oh my
and
God. Sorry.
talk about workaholism, right? Well, the way I saw that is, okay, there's a yes in here somewhere. So I'm just going to go with it and see what happens. And so I told her, I said, I live in Northern Nevada. And well, where in Northern Nevada? So I told her I live about an hour east of Tahoe and about an hour and change south of Reno. And she says, oh, this will be perfect for you. Are you interested in an interim ministry job? And I said, yeah. And that was the birth of my first interim minister job in Placerville, California, which is about a 3-hour drive for me up and over the mountain.
Perfect, right?
It was perfect. And
Oh,
I just thought it was so hilarious. Where do you live?
sorry. Oh my God. There was so much going on back then. There's still always a lot going on, but there was so much going
It
on back
was a
then.
lot going on. Yeah, yeah.
The interim ministry program was really new then. Like we had just recently started requiring some education for people to do that work and really
Yes.
creating a team out of the people that did that work. And so, which was great because there was so much good advice passing back and forth and
Mhm.
so much good support in that group. Anyway,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it was awesome. And I appreciated the opportunity. I'm fresh out of class here and I had always wanted to do intern ministry. That was one of my niches in ministry from the beginning. And I got to go to Placerville and it was a fairly challenging assignment, but they're doing great now, by the way. They're doing
yeah,
yeah,
you really shifted a tone there. I
yeah,
gotta hand it to
yeah,
you on that one. That was a hard one to start with, especially.
yeah. So
Where do you live? Yeah, that's all we need. Where do you live? You're in.
where do you live? Oh, well, I live. Where do you want me to live?
Oh my God.
So anyway, talk about crazy and challenging times. When Barbara and I chatted before this recording that we're doing right now, she shared with me that she's been transitioning out of a consciousness or a state, if you will, of being a workaholic. And she says that she's been a master workaholic since she was about 14. And then over the last year or so, she's been changing things up a bit. So I thought you might want to hear how she has done that, how she's been transitioning out of workaholism and into something that serves her better. So, Barbara, speak to that a little bit for us.
Yeah, you know, of course, I don't know about you, but I don't always pay attention to the signs that the universe sends me. I try to. I think, sometimes, you going along and you think, oh, I got that part down. I pay attention. And I really hit a wall of exhaustion and compassion fatigue after the pandemic, especially. I know a lot of us struggled with that, but I hit this what a good friend of mine who's a psychologist called a confluence of um, being burned out and having compassion fatigue, and also being exhausted in a way that uh, she suggested I actually get help, like, or that I consider taking antidepressants, which I had never needed in my life before. So I talked to some people and I did some things, and I took a month off. And that month was the first time I did not answer I didn't even read my email for a month, which is, I mean, I've never gone for more than a couple of days without checking in with work in my whole life. I mean, before ministry, for a very long time, I was in leadership with FedEx, and I wore a beeper the minute beepers became available. So, I hit 60 at the end of last year. And, that moment of, okay, this is third, right? Everybody talks about it's the third. And do I want my life to feel like this and look like, to feel like this for the rest of my life? I've been tired forever, right? And I have sacrificed relationships and friendships and to the altar of work. And even in ministry, I mean, you know how that goes, right? You end up doing 60-hour, 70-hour weeks. You're emotionally exhausted as well as physically tired. Um, and so for me, it was also, I started doing all this reading on um, white supremacy and the issues that were coming up during the pandemic, of racism. And I read a couple writers who really sort of put together this grind that we are taught to be in the US from a very young age, and slavery mentality. And it pissed me off. I was like, wait, I bought into this in a really big way. And I've been successful in a lot of different ways in my life. And I don't want to take anything away from people who are working hard. That's not what this is about. But I bought into this. I realized it was really born of a place of fear that I was going to be broke, or that I was going to, I used to joke when I was younger that I would be pushing my grocery cart under my car, right? Or something like that. But it was a joke, but it was one of those not funny, but not funny, haha things, because it was really in the back of my head all the time that I knew from a pretty young age I was going to need to take care of myself. And what happens if I stop working, or what happens if I fall down on the job? So just a lot of unraveling and a lot of reading and a lot of like, okay, I've been teaching these principles. That was the other thing that got me. I've been teaching people to have full, abundant lives, not money abundant, yes, part of it, but also the abundance of time and the abundance of relationship and the abundance of feeling good and joy in your life. And I wasn't doing it. And I really don't like it when I'm out of alignment in that way. So that was a mouthful. I don't know if I got anywhere with that, but um, it's led me to really step back and try to examine what drives, and to manage my time differently and consciously, and to say no sometimes to reading my email at 7 o'clock at night when my wife wants me to do something else. That was
Yeah,
a lot. Sorry.
that was a lot. And I have follow-up questions for you. So
Yeah,
thank
okay.
you for that. That was wonderful. I can really identify with that workaholism thing. When I owned my photography studio, I used to say, I'm going to be chasing ladies in white dresses around until the day I die.
Yeah.
And I joked about it and said I was going to have to hire a strong young person, in my case, the strong young man, to carry my camera equipment around for me. And I did end up doing that. I
Yeah.
did end up, and I hired women as well, but I did end up hiring strong young people to carry my gear for me because it just wasn't working for me to carry it anymore. And when
Yeah,
I
it's that thing of where you get successful and then it's like, oh, here I am, I'm successful, but now I can't keep up with myself. And
exactly,
working for yourself is, I had my own business for a long time.
yeah,
That thing of I'm not going to get paid if I'm not working
mm,
is really hard when you're, and and I don't know how many ministers listen to your show, but it links into ministry in a way that's not healthy too. But I was in the antique business for a long time before the in between FedEx and ministry. Had an antique business and an estate business, but it's like that thing in the back of your head. Oh my God, if I'm not doing enough, I'm not going to make enough money. And how am I going to pay the rent? And the train rolls really fast. Like,
yes,
you know, I
yeah.
know you know this. I can tell you know this.
I do know this. Yes, I do know this, and I can really identify. And when I retired from that photography business, and I let it had claw marks all over it because I didn't let go of them easily.
Right?
Yeah, and but now that I've let go of it completely, the website's gone. It's all done. Now that I've let go of it completely, I am so grateful for what it provided me for 30 years. And I'm so grateful for what it did not provide me that kind of forced me to retire at the end there. And I am so grateful that I finally listened to those messages, what you said in the beginning about how we don't always listen to those messages that come to us. And my experience is not only do we not always listen, but if we do listen, we don't want to hear it.
We argue with it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't want to hear it.
I
Yeah.
argue with it. Oh, I can argue with it,
Yeah. Yeah, we
but
argue with it. Yeah. Yeah. So I have a question for you. You said you took a whole month off and you didn't even answer your emails for a whole month.
my work ones. I answered my friends.
Oh, okay, your work ones. So you saw them, but you just like, nope, nope.
Oh, I have two separate logins on my computer. One's for work and one's for my personal stuff. So
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's real practical.
well, at some point when I leave CSL, I can, that stuff will stay with CSL and I can delete it off my computer because I use my own computer. But
Oh, oh, I never thought about that. Okay. See, I haven't even gotten that far yet. I've only been a minister for 10 years. And so I haven't gotten that far yet. I figure I'm just getting started on this deal. So anyway, would you recommend to people who are wanting to transition out of workaholism and into a more peaceful life that serves them better, would you recommend not checking your email for a full month?
yeah, I would recommend walking away for a month if it's possible. I realize I want to say that I realize that I'm very lucky in being able to do that. I
Mhm,
currently work for somebody who wanted me to stick around enough and when I said I'm exhausted and I don't know if I can keep doing this, asked me to take a month off and see if I could stay, you know?
mhm,
And so I took her up on it. And I'm really fortunate in that, you know, and not everybody can. But what I would say is it's time to create for all of us to create some boundaries. Like we got cell phones and we all are now expected to answer our email 24 hours a day. And I have friends who are, you know, on it all the time and feel like they're going to lose their job if they're not. And and if there's anybody out there right now listening to this show who employs people, we got to stop that. We're killing people. The people in the US are just fried. And I think that lends itself to all the noise and the fighting in politics because everyone is too tired to be thoughtful and kind. And, when you're exhausted, your default isn't those things all the time. And it's hurting us. It's hurting our health. We have terrible healthcare outcomes in this country. It's and I told you, I also told you like we were spending a lot of time in Europe and on vacation and a lot of time in France because we had a friend who purchased a home there um and so we were just going and hanging out in the countryside. And so we've ended up buying there and it is just so different. It is so different because people have a 35-hour work week. That's full time in France. It's against the law to make your employees work at their desk during lunch, and lunch is 2 hours. And people take it and they go pick up their kids from school, and the kids have 2 hours for lunch, and everybody works, still the same number of hours, but they have a phrase that is joy of living. And their focus is on joyful life, and work supports that, but does not dominate it. And so the tenor is just really different. Even though I don't speak French very well and I don't really know what people are saying, the tenor is different.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That sounds like heaven.
it is.
That sounds
And
like heaven.
plus they all have health care. And so they're not, their jobs are, you know, this was a post-slavery thing. We tied uh healthcare to work so that poor people did not have health care.
Mm-hmm.
And working people with good jobs had health care. And we've continued that in this country in a way that's also really not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because everyone's afraid. I don't, people are staying in their jobs just for their health care, even though they're miserable.
Yeah.
And I just think how much creativity and how many new businesses and how much art and music are we not having because people are so afraid of losing their health care?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll never forget one day when I realized how big of an issue that was. I was talking to a friend who was beside himself because he had gotten laid off from his job. And I said, well, aren't you at retirement age? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, why are you so upset about this? And he said, because I'm going to be losing my health insurance. And it didn't make any sense to me because up until I turned 65 and got Medicare, I've never had health insurance.
Oh, wow.
I've been self employed my whole life. I traded photo sessions with my doctor once a year.
Wow.
That was my health care. And I didn't understand that. I didn't understand. Now, as I'm aging, I'm 69 now. As I'm aging, I'm starting to need a little bit of health care. And I'm very grateful for it. I'm very grateful for that.
But isn't there's some crazy statistic like 70% of bankruptcies in the United States are because of healthcare costs? Somebody gets
Yeah.
cancer. Everybody's like one bad diagnosis from bankruptcy. uh,
Yes.
and those are people with insurance. It's just that some of our insurance is crap and really expensive, so people can't choose the
Yeah.
plan that, I don't know. I've talked to people who are just staying in jobs past retirement age because their spouse was on their health care plan and had some illness that they
Mm-hmm.
couldn't, you know. I mean, thank God at least that now pre-existing conditions don't keep you from getting health care, which, not that long ago was true.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, all that, like it's all this thing that we do in the US that's work, 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 and make everything about work. And
Mm-hmm.
I learned that really early. It comes out of that Puritan work ethic thing, like all work and no play, right? Um, and and it's okay to be dull because you're supposed to be working. And there's has to, I don't know, I one of the things that I listened to and read, oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget her name. I'm gonna have to look it up. She has a podcast called The Nap Ministry.
Say it again.
Nap Ministry, NAP.
NAP. Okay.
Got a book. She has a book about this, and she really dives into this history of uh, of the grind in the United
Mm-hmm.
States, and
Yeah.
it was eye opening, and it was like reading a mirror, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I bought into this and I bought into this. And it was good in so many ways. I am very fortunate in my life because of these things. But now in the world, we have to rebalance. We just have to rebalance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I started rebalancing.
So how my this podcast is about using spiritual tools, principles and practices to do what you call rebalancing.
Yeah.
Were there any specific practices and or principles that have been particularly helpful to you on this journey of transitioning from workaholism to something that's much more balanced?
Yeah, one of my spiritual practices is to read things that I've not already read about. So, things like, and to listen to podcasts that stretch my thinking.
Okay.
So there's that. Um, while I was off, I so my wife retired a couple years ago, and she has no problem with this. She's never had a workaholism problem, even remotely, right? She's super happy to read a book all day. And I'm probably never going to be that person, uh but when she retired, a friend of hers said, just spend the first month following your body around. Listen to your body, and whatever it wants to do, do it. If you want to take a nap, take a nap. If you want to take a walk, go for a walk. Just listen to your body. And I did that for that month. And I've tried to do it more while working now, and to get up more and move more. And I feel like those things are spiritual practices at this point,
Mhm.
Um, I've never had time to be a gardener or a yard work person. So I was just like, I'm not into that, right? I pay people to do that because I don't have time because I work all the time. Well, we bought this place in France that has a bunch of land. And so, last year we had some firewood delivered, and during this month that I was off, and I was stacking firewood, and I was like, okay, normally I would be working and paying somebody to stack this firewood. And I today would feel better stacking the firewood than thinking about going and sitting at my computer. So it's things like that. Like, what brings you feel alive,
Mhm.
and paying attention to to that, yeah, paying attention to what brings you to life. I watch you on I Facebook watch you on your farm, right? And
Uh-huh.
you're doing horses and doing the snow and doing whatever, all the things. And I really admire you in that. Like, you're so fiercely independent and strong. And it's like I can't even imagine you giving those things up. And I hardly know you. Um, but I think those are spiritual practices for you, if I was get to guess, you know.
They very much are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I consider myself semi-retired part-time as a
Yeah.
minister. I don't work full-time, and I do spend at least a couple of hours every single day outdoors doing something.
Hmm.
And that's what you call follow your body. That's what my body is asking me to do. And and I don't know that I'm fiercely independent or not, except there's no one else that lives here that the stuff wouldn't get done otherwise, unless I called the tractor guy to come over and do it for me with his tractor. But yeah, I love gardening. I'm getting ready to plant my seeds for spring crop. I
I've noticed you even intentionally cook and intentionally feed yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I've never been good at like cooking just for myself. I love to cook for other people, but I've not been good at cooking for myself. And I want to say, like, I really admire how you've moved into
Oh,
that in your
well,
life.
thank you. Well, when you live a half an hour away from everything, you kind of, I
That
mean,
it
there's a
is.
restaurant. There's two restaurants. No, there's three. There's three restaurants within a 15-minute drive from me. But
Yeah.
and the food is actually quite good at them. Uh,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
yeah, you got to cook when you live out here. Um, I buy my eggs from the local farmer. You got to do this stuff when you live out here. And
But wouldn't you prefer to do that stuff anyway?
Oh, yeah. I would prefer to do that stuff. Yeah. And people tell me, they say, "You're so busy." And I think, actually, no, I'm not busy. I nap almost every day.
Good for you.
Talk about that nap ministry. I nap almost every day. Sometimes it's only for 10 or 15 minutes,
But that's
but
enough.
I sit there, I start to read, and if I nod off, I let myself nod off. I follow my body around.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I noticed for me when I started doing like this yard work stuff in
Mhm,
France is that my general inclination when I do anything, and even when I was doing it here and anything like this in the US, is you have to attack it. You got to go at it. You got to get it all done in one day or like and from so I would always do those things in a way that even if I got tired, I still had to finish it that day or that hour or whatever. And so no matter and then I would end up tired and sore and it makes you not like doing those things. So
mhm,
the last time we were over there when we had to do a lot of leaf breaking, what we talked about. I was like, okay, we don't have to do all this today. I kept telling myself, I don't have to do all this today. I can come out here for 2 hours and then I
mhm,
can have some lunch and I can take a nap if I want to. Because then I would work in the even I work in the evenings when I'm there just because of the time change, right? So it was really and I had to like I would notice if my back started to ache a little bit and I would be like, okay, I can stop now because I want to be able to do this tomorrow and feel good about it. And I can enjoy what this was, and I can go walk around the trees for a little while and stretch, and then I can go have lunch and take a nap,
mhm.
whatever, read my book. You know, I think a lot of us do that. We got to get it all done right now, today.
Yeah, yeah,
My dad used to tell me if I was sitting down, I wasn't working.
yeah, yeah. And that's a pretty gnarly message to grow up with.
Well, especially when you end up with mostly desk jobs at some
Yeah,
point. Yeah.
yeah,
No, yeah, he was, yeah. Yeah, he was the lesson. I got my lessons. I came by it honestly, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about basically is a huge change in your very belief system about what life is all about.
Yes. And about really truly, we have people make all those pie charts of how do you spend your time and what are your values and are you spending your time with the things that matter? And 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 we all do it and we go, oh yeah, I really want to spend more time over here, but then we don't. And I think it's time. Like for me, it was just time to go, okay, I have a pretty small circle of friends because I have not made time for that in my life. You know, I
Mhm.
and I would if something came up at work, then I would call and cancel because work. Always. You know,
Yeah.
stuff comes up a lot. Not as much now, but it used to. Um, and so I think it's the desire married with like intentionality, married with some grace when you fall back into the trap, and um, and then just really back to that, like, what do I want my life to feel like, and who do I want in it? I
Mhm.
want friends who are grown-ups and you know,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
I'm hearing a lot of personal self-awareness, that's what I call it, introspection, and I'm also hearing a lot of mindfulness in there too.
right, but different. I think I was very mindful doing pulpit ministry, but I don't know about you. I really love the prosperity teachings and helping people shift their life and shift their work. And I've helped a lot of people create businesses or grow their businesses. And we always talked about the fullness of life, like all the things, right? But I have to say that if I could do it again, I would be really more um balanced in the focus part, because I taught a lot of stay on target, focus, focus, focus. I used to use the Star Wars thing, stay on target, let don't let the distractions pull you from your vision. Follow, do the thing. And I think a lot of us have done that and made it into a single-minded grind in a way, because we want to accomplish this thing, or we want to make this much money, or we want to do this, we want to create this thing. And some of that is great. And I think I think I was always way too far in the just do it. You said you want this, you got to do it. Go do it. Um, and I think that a little more napping is probably really healthy, even when we're 40 or 50. And not napping doesn't necessarily mean sleeping,
Mhm.
it means playing with your kids, and it means, um, you know, going out and shooting baskets with your kid, whatever,
Yeah.
which is encouraged also. I have a lot of parents in my community, but um, they were always really good at that part. So we didn't have to talk about that part very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me,
The
the equivalent,
well-rounded life.
say that again.
Well-rounded life.
Yes, a real well-rounded life for sure. For me, the equivalent of shooting baskets is going out and hugging my horses,
There you go.
burying
Yeah.
my face in their neck. Yep.
And then there becomes a conversation that needs to take place, I think, about sufficiency and enoughness. You know, do where's the, like, we're people are in the grind and working. I was in the grind and working because, bigger house, new car, these things, and
Mm.
um, even in our teachings, we've used the new car thing so much. And I think that's kind of old now. I hope that's really mostly old now. But is that what we really need? You know? Or is it a symbol of something else? Is it a symbol of being insecure about taking care of yourself? Or is it a symbol about fear of not enough? And if it's just that you want a car, awesome. But if it's underlying, it's not really the car that's bringing you joy. The car is a manifestation of covering your fear. Then it's a different conversation, and I'm not sure we were doing that deeply enough.
Yeah. I love the new conversations that we are starting to have at Centers for Spiritual Living that are going much deeper than they ever went before.
Mm.
I love the conversations that are saying things like, it's no longer acceptable to ask someone who's just experienced a tragedy, what were you thinking?
Right? Yeah, I know.
It's no longer acceptable to say or ask those things. I love
Yeah.
those kinds of things that are going on here.
I never bought that part, thank goodness. We used to call my community, we used to call my church reality church, because it was here's these spiritual principles and practices, but sometimes life is hard, and these are to help you get through the hard, not to make the hard disappear like magic. There's no magic.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Do you have any last minute words of anything you would like to share before we wrap this up, Barbara?
Oh, whew, wow. In 30 seconds, what have I learned?
Oh, you don't have to do it in 30 seconds. You can take longer if you want.
Feel like I've been rambling a bit. Um, I guess the one thing I would say is, please take care of yourself.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
all of us need to slow down and take care of ourselves. And even if we're in a job that we're stuck in right now, and we got to pay the bills, because there's the reality of some of these things of life, right?
Mhm.
Don't forget to take a breath and to, you know, um, sometimes close the computer and hang up the phone and be with people that be with people that bring you joy,
Yes.
you know? And
Yeah.
I'm with its connection now so much more. Like COVID threw us off so bad, and we're still so disconnected from people. Like we need to be with people again. The ones we like and the ones we don't like. We need to just be with people sometimes and
Mhm.
uh, get back in that energy of caring about your neighbor.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. It's a privilege to be here. I really appreciate your invitation. Well, actually, when I came up to you, this was so sweet. When I came up to you and said I would love to be on your podcast, you just lit up, and that made I
Yeah.
have to tell you that felt so good in that moment. So I really
Okay. Well, I was honored too, and I'm very glad that you came, and maybe we'll have you back again because this guest thing is this isn't a one time deal. I've got other guests lined up and still
conversation.
working on getting responses from people that I've sent emails out to, and they probably took a nap and they haven't responded back to me yet.
They will. They will.
Yeah,
They will. They just
yeah,
gotta know what you're doing.
yeah. All right. Well, what I'd like to do is my normal closing here, and then I'll stop recording, and then you and I can chat a little bit more if you want.
Okay.
Okay. Well, it's been absolutely wonderful having this conversation with Reverend Barbara View here today. I am very grateful, and I'm feeling very honored to have you here. Thank you so much. And Fearlessly Feral Living is a focus ministry of Centers for Spiritual Living. Your support is much appreciated and fully tax deductible. And you can support the podcast through our main platform at Buzzsprout. You can also support us with one-time donations at PayPal. And our website is fearlesslyferal.org. And I thank you very much for your support. And I am knowing fearlessly feral living for you from this point forward. Once again, thank you very much.